What if the Pirate King Goldie Roger was a Marine? I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. Here's how it could happen. After finding the One Piece, Roger realizes he's too early. Joy Boy's successor hasn't been born yet, the ancient weapons aren't fully awakened, and the world isn't ready for what the One Piece is meant to do. In the original story, Roger turns himself in, but in this version, he makes a deal with the Marines and the world government. And that's exactly how Roger then becomes a Marine. Now make sure you guys watch till the end because things are gonna get crazier and crazier from this point on, so you guys don't want to miss out on that. But let's go ahead and get into the actual what if Goldie Roger was a Marine. Now for this story to work, we need to deal with Roger's terminal illness. In the original story, he was going to die anyways, which is why he chose to be executed in front of the whole world. But if we're making him a Marine, we have to cure his disease first. The easiest and most straightforward way to do this would be by giving Roger a Logia Devil Fruit. So how about Green Bull's Motomoto no Mi? The Motomoto no Mi would allow Roger to create and control Forest while also healing his body. So this is how it's gonna go. When Roger turns himself into Garp and Sengoku, they're naturally shocked and curious. Why would the Pirate King surrender? Roger explains that he has a terminal illness and doesn't have much time left. He says he's surrendering to ensure his crew is spared. Hearing this, Garp and Sengoku come up with an unexpected suggestion. Roger should join the Marines and become an admiral. They point out that this would shatter the allure of piracy if even the Pirate King himself became a Marine. Sengoku also mentions that the Marines have a devil fruit that might neutralize Roger's illness. At first, Roger is stunned by how ridiculous the idea sounds. I mean, him, a Marine, it's laughable. But after a few hours of thinking it over, he starts to see the value in it. Roger has always respected Garp and Sengoku even though they're Marines. He starts to wonder that maybe becoming a Marine isn't such a bad idea after all. He could continue making a positive change in the seas while standing up to the world government just like Garp does. Plus, Roger has always wished he'd be born in Joy Boy's era. While that's not possible since Joy Boy lived over 800 years ago, the second Joy Boy is about to be born. If Roger stays alive, he could live in the same era as Joy Boy's successor. And most importantly, if he joins the Marines, his soon-to-be born son won't face persecution. In the end, Roger accepts the offer and the big news of the Pirate King becoming a Marine Admiral shocks the entire world. Rayleigh, Gaban, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, every pirate across the seas and even ordinary citizens of the world are left completely speechless as they read the newspaper. Why, Roger, why? Why did you become the government's dog? It doesn't matter whether they were his enemies or allies, every pirate has the same question. On the other hand, the citizens of the world are amazed. Even the Pirate King, the man who conquered the Grand Line, was willing to bow to the government and join the Marines. But Roger's decision also inspires a wave of rebellion. More and more people are motivated to become pirates. They set sail not just to reject the former Pirate King, but to claim the title of the true Pirate King for themselves. Of course, Roger now also becomes a walking target. Pirates everywhere see him as both a traitor and a valuable source of information about the legendary treasure, the One Piece. By the way, every admiral gets an epithet. For example, Kuzan is the blue pheasant, Aokiji, and Sakazuki is the red dog, Akainu. So what would Roger's epithet be? He'd be called the Golden Lion, Kinshi. This would naturally infuriate someone like Shiki. Not only did Roger betray all the pirates by joining the Marines, but now he's also stolen Shiki's thunder. Really, Roger? Really? Anyway, since Roger is alive in this timeline, he gets to have Porgus the Rogue and Ace as his family. However, because of the constant threats from pirates targeting him, Roger decides to move his family from the North Blue to Fusha Village in the East Blue. Roger's relationship with Garp will be different as well. I'd say that Roger and Garp would have a dynamic similar to Roger and Whitebeard in the original timeline. They'd share a friendly rivalry, exchange banner, but also share drinks and reminisce about their past battles. Sengoku would often join them, and with these three legends being the unshakable faces of the Marines, it'd be enough to weaken the world's government authority over Marine headquarters. The Marines will start to look more independent and less like the puppets of the Celestial Dragon. This shift would even convince Garp to finally accept the promotion and become an admiral. In this new era, the position of admiral wouldn't symbolize being a dog of the Celestial Dragon. Roger's influence wouldn't stop just at Garp either, because his presence would also positively impact Sengoku. For example, in the Ohara incident that happened around 2 years after Roger's death, it was Sengoku who led it. With Roger's positive influence on Sengoku in this new era, what's stopping Sengoku from calling off the Buster Call on Ohara? After all, we've already seen Fujitora get away with exposing the Marines and even helping the revolutionaries free the slaves on Marijoa. If someone like Fujitora could openly defy the world government for the sake of justice, then it's possible that a Sengoku influenced by Roger's ideals could do the same exact thing. Of course, Sengoku doesn't have to outright refuse the world government's orders, but he could handle things differently. Instead of sending Cypher Pole and calling for a Buster Call, he could go to Ohara himself and arrest the scholars. This way, Professor Clover and the others would be sent to Impel Down instead of being killed. It's not a perfect ending, but it's much better than what happened in the original story. Ohara would still exist. Robin's life wouldn't change much at first. Sengoku would still arrest Olivia and Saul, so she'll still be left to grow up alone. However, with Ohara still standing, her future would take a different path. Robin could eventually work with Vegapunk as the last person from Ohara who can read poneglyphs. She could teach Vegapunk how to read them and help him study the books and knowledge from Ohara. In the following years, the time comes to choose the next fleet admiral to replace Kong. At this point, the three admirals are Roger, Garp, and Sengoku. However, both Roger and Garp have no interest in going extreme diff with the paperwork every day, and so Sengoku becomes the new fleet admiral. About 5 years after Roger becomes a Marine, Luffy is born. When Dragon leaves him with Garp to keep him safe, Roger offers to adopt Luffy and raise him alongside Ace as his brother. At first, Garp isn't so sure about this. After all, the world government is still suspicious of Roger, and more importantly, there are still pirates out there hunting Roger, and if they find out about his family, they'll come after them too. But Roger points out that the Fuchsia village in the East Blue is far away from all that danger. It's quiet, out of sight, and safer than anywhere else. Plus, with Rogue, Ace, and Luffy living there, they'd be well hidden. So after thinking it over, Garp finally agrees. Just like that, Luffy becomes Roger's adoptive son. The story continues on, but the timeline plays out differently. Roger learns about what's been going on in Wano and how Oden's been dancing for Kaido and Orochi every day for the past 4 years. Well, because he knows what's sleeping under Wano and because Oden is one of the boys, he asks Sengoku for permission to invade and annex Wano. Sengoku runs it by the world government and gives Roger the green light. Roger then enters Wano the same way Green Bull did in the actual story. Well, I mean, Roger does have the same devil fruit as Green Bull right now, and he is joined by other vice admirals including Borsalino and Kuzan. Kuzan stays in the seas of Wano with the marine ships, while Borsalino literally flies into Wano to follow Roger. With Oden's help, Roger and Borsalino take down Kaido and capture the Beast Pirates. Orochi would be taken out and Oden would reclaim the shogunate, but when it's time to annex Wano for the world government, Roger pretends to lose to Oden and retreats with Borsalino. Borsalino, being just a simple guy, follows Roger's orders since Roger is his superior. Kaido and his crew would then end up in Impel Down on the level 6 floor. When Whitebeard hears about what happened, he visits Wano with his crew. He learns from Oden that Roger is still on the side of freedom and hasn't changed at all. Whitebeard also apologizes to Oden and admits that he had no idea Wano was in such a terrible state. But then there's Shanks. While Rayleigh, Gaban, Crocus, and even Oden understand that Roger is still the same as ever, Shanks and Buggy feel betrayed and wronged. Especially Shanks. Shanks decides to go after the One Piece himself and manages to collect 3 out of the 4 rolled poneglyphs. He gets the Zou rolled poneglyph because of his friendship with Nekomamushi and Unarashi. He gets the Wano rolled poneglyph thanks to Oden, and he gets the Big Mom rolled poneglyph the same way Luffy and Kid did. Let me point out that this all happens before Shanks gets his One 1 billion bounty. At this time, he and his crew are far from their peak. However, thanks to his connections, Shanks becomes the man closest to claiming the One Piece now. Unfortunately though, no one knows who the Burn Scar is and where to find the 4th Road Poneglyph. But forget about the 4th Road Poneglyph for now, because what happens next is the Red Hair Pirates are going to war in an all-out battle against 2 Marine Admirals. We're talking about Shanks and his crew versus Garp and Roger. Roger tells Garp to step back while Shanks tells his crew to step back. It is now a one-on-one, Shanks versus Roger. This fight is going to be very similar to the one between Luffy and Kaido, because in this battle is where Shanks experienced the most serious hockey bloom of his entire life. Yes, this is the battle that would make him top tier, but ultimately he loses. Even though Shanks and Roger wouldn't share more than a few words, just the fact that Shanks was able to trade clashes with Roger the way that they did would be enough for him to understand that his captain hasn't changed. Though his captain does end up telling him something. Roger tells Shanks that he'll find his kid in the East Blue. As he shares this with Shanks, Roger smiles and recalls a moment from a couple of years ago when a 5-year-old Luffy said the same exact words as him. By the way, just to make that clear, that would be the fact that he's saying, I'm gonna become a Pirate King, just in case that wasn't clear. But anyways, Shanks gives up on finding the One Piece himself and instead begins searching for the one who will lead the next generation. He manages to take the Gomu Gomu no Mi from Cypher Pole 9 and eventually arrives at Fuchsia Village, where the same iconic scene plays out. That's right, somehow Luffy still ends up eating the Gomu Gomu no Mi. However, this time though, there's no need for Shanks to sacrifice his arm. Ace, who is present in the village, steps in and beats the bandit's ass before he can take Luffy hostage. But then in this moment is when Luffy says the same exact words as Roger once did. Hearing this, Shanks smiles with tears in his eyes and decides to leave his straw hat with Luffy. It's not as serious or dramatic as it was in the original story, but instead Shanks simply smiles and says, I'm giving this hat to you, return it once you achieve your dream. This then still leads Luffy and Ace to getting acquainted with Sabo, and fast forward to when it's time for them to set out to the seas. Sabo becomes a revolutionary, Luffy decides to go after the One Piece just like his adopted father Goldie Roger once did, while Ace, on the other hand, ends up becoming a Marine. This then makes everything set in stone for Luffy and Ace to be like the OG Roger and Garp. It all continues as Luffy plows through the seas with his crew while causing incident after incident. By now, Roger and Garp have retired, much like Garp and Sengoku did in the original timeline. The new admirals of the Marines are the OG trio, Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru. Meanwhile, all this is happening, Blackbeard is still up to his shenanigans. He manages to become a warlord by capturing Luffy just as he originally intended. However, there's no need for Luffy's public execution because Roger, the Pirate King, is now a Marine anyways. Yeah, that's right, hands off Luffy, hands off him. But everything changes when it is revealed that Luffy's biological father is the world's greatest criminal, Monkey D. Dragon. And of course, if you haven't guessed it already, all of this will lead to the famous Battle of Marineford. And while Whitebeard pulled up to save Ace in the original story, this time it's Shanks who pulls up to save Luffy. Garp, Roger, and Ace won't sit around like Garp did in the manga, and Sabo will also show up, not as a revolutionary though, but as Luffy's brother. Luffy will survive while Blackbeard will recruit Kaido, Crocodile, King, Queen, Jack, and the others into his crew. The Ohara scholars will also take the opportunity and flee to Elbaf, while the same thing goes for Roger. He'd leave the Marines and stay out of the world's government shadows as both Luffy and Blackbeard turned the world upside down. In one way or another, Roger's dream of living in the same era as Joy Boy would come true. And as poetic as this sounds, Joy Boy would be his adoptive son. And there you go guys, that's my thoughts on what would happen if Goldie Roger was to become a Marine. Let me know down in the comments if there's anything that you guys disagree with or something that you guys would also like to add into this story. Comment it all down below, I'm going to be reading them, and I just want to thank you you guys for blowing up the last video. It honestly feels so surreal to see that everybody is enjoying these what if theories. So if you guys have any suggestions, put them down as well. Make sure to smash that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on the next upload. But that's enough yapping for today. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.